Hey, hey, English learners! Welcome back to Speak English with Us, your cozy little place to learn easy English through real, everyday conversations. I'm Melody.
And I'm Holmes. And Melody, I have a question for you before we start properly. Have you ever been completely, totally, 100% wrong about someone based on a first impression?
Oh, only every day. You see someone and your brain just instantly creates a whole movie trailer about their entire life. Does that happen to you?
Exactly. I feel so real at the moment. You see someone with a frayed coat and worn-out boots and your brain whispers, they don't belong here. Or you see someone in a sharp suit and you think, success. It's like a secret, silent language everyone understands.
Yes, it feels like a superpower, doesn't it? That gut feeling. But what if that instinct, that feeling that feels so certain, so right, is wrong 90% of the time?
Oof, that's a scary thought, but probably true.
It made me think of this incredible story about a man who everyone judged, and in doing so, missed the most important truth about him entirely. It's a story that proves the most important parts of who we are completely invisible to the eye.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's get into it.
So, to understand this story, we first have to understand why our brains jump to conclusions so fast. Why do we judge a book by its cover, even when we know we shouldn't? What do you all think?
Right. And it's not because we're all secretly bad people. It's because our brains are basically running on really, really old software. They're built for efficiency, for shortcuts.
Exactly. Think about our ancestors on the savannah. You didn't have time to conduct a detailed personality interview when a saber-toothed tiger might be in the grass. You had to make a split-second decision based on visual cues, friend or foe, threat or not.
And that ancient life-saving software is still running in our heads today. I think I read somewhere that researchers at Princeton found it takes us as little as 100 milliseconds, a tenth of a second, to form an initial impression of someone just from their face.
A tenth of a second? That's insane. And this all happens in a primitive part of our brain called the amygdala. A good way to think of the amygdala is as your brain's smoke detector. It's not sophisticated. Its job is to react to potential threats before your rational mind has time to properly boot up.
So when you see a new face, the amygdala gets the information instantly. If any feature, a furrowed brow, a downturned mouth, sets off the alarm, it floods your system with a stress response. It's a gut feeling, but it's not magic, it's biology.
And that biological shortcut leads to a powerful cognitive bias I find fascinating. It's called the halo effect. The term was first coined by a psychologist named Edward Thorndike way back in 1920.
Right. And the halo effect is when we see one positive quality in a person, and we subconsciously assume they have other positive qualities too. Studies have shown we automatically think attractive people are also smarter, kinder, and more trustworthy, even with zero evidence. We placed a little halo on them.
But it has a dark twin, which is often called the Holmes effect. If our first impression is negative because of one trait, like a disheveled appearance, we instinctively project other negative qualities onto them. We assume they're lazy, incompetent, or dishonest.
Which is exactly what happens in the story you mentioned. The security guard didn't just see an old coat. His brain, guided by the Holmes effect, saw a person who was untrustworthy and didn't belong.
Exactly. And the real danger here is that these judgments are incredibly sticky. Once we form that first impression, another bias kicks in, confirmation bias. Our brain doesn't like to be wrong, so after making a judgment, it actively looks for evidence that confirms it and ignores everything that contradicts it.
That is painfully true. If you decide someone looks arrogant, you'll see their confidence as proof. If you think they look shady, their quietness will feel suspicious. You build a case to prove your first impression right.
And that's the lie. The man in the story, Arthur Finch, wasn't a person to the guard. He was a collection of negative signals filtered through ancient survival instincts and modern social biases. He was a problem to be managed. And that is the lie our brains tell us every single day.
All right, so tell us about this Arthur Finch. Who was he before he became this person everyone was misjudging?
Well, that's what makes the story so powerful. 25 years ago, Arthur Finch wasn't just seen, he was the man everyone wanted to see. He was a tech wonderkind, a visionary who co-founded a company called Nexus Dynamics in a garage.
Ah, the classic garage startup story. Love it.
And it exploded. Arthur, with his sharp suits and confident smile, was the perfect face for the company. He was the living embodiment of the halo effect. Because he was successful, everyone just assumed he was happy and fulfilled. He was on magazine covers, hailed as a genius.
So people weren't just seeing him, they were projecting their own dreams of success onto him.
Exactly. But inside, he felt completely disconnected. He'd built a machine to connect the world, but he felt profoundly alone. The man on the magazine cover wasn't him. It was a character he was playing, a lie.
Wow, so what did he do?
One day, at the age of 45, he called a board meeting and just resigned. He cashed out his shares, set up an anonymous trust fund, and walked away from everything. He vanished.
He just walked away from millions, from his whole life?
Completely. He shed that skin and put on the clothes of a ghost. He moved to a simple apartment, let his hair and beard grow gray, and traded his expensive suits for worn-out boots. And he started to actually see the world he'd been trying to connect through screens.
And that's when his real work began.
Yes. Through his lawyer, his anonymous trust started to move. A check would mysteriously arrive to pay off a family's medical debt. A community center would suddenly get funding for a new roof. An aspiring musician would get an anonymous grant. He wanted no credit. The joy was in the act itself.
That's incredible. He was like a silent guardian angel.
He found a special passion for the City Youth Foundation, an underfunded group helping at-risk teens. Over a decade, his anonymous donations became their lifeblood. He funded their new building, their scholarships, everything.
Wow. Which brings us back to the Gala, I'm guessing.
Which brings us to the Gala. The foundation was holding its annual fundraiser, and the guest of honor, the keynote speaker, was the new CEO of Nexus Dynamics, the very company Arthur had built. His lawyer begged him not to go, but Arthur wanted to see the kids he'd been helping. So he put on his usual coat and beanie and walked to the Grand Hotel,
never imagining that the foundation's biggest donor would be turned away at the door. Oof.
So, inside the ballroom, the new CEO is giving a speech about corporate responsibility. The guests are applauding politely, but nobody's really opening their wallets. The foundation's director, Maria, is watching, her heart just sinking. They're going to fall short.
Meanwhile, Arthur is outside, sitting on a bench. He'd just been rejected at the door.
Right, and he wasn't even angry. He was just thoughtful. He'd seen that look on the guard's face 1,000 times. He'd become a ghost, a walking embodiment of the Holmes effect. So he pulls out his old, battered flip phone and calls his lawyer.
Ah, here we go. The tables are about to turn.
He tells his lawyer, David, call Maria at the foundation. Tell her the full annual budget she needs will be covered. And tell her there's one condition.
One condition. I love it.
Back inside, Maria's phone buzzes. She takes the call, her eyes go wide, her hands start shaking. She walks straight to the security chief and whispers something in his ear. The chief's face goes pale.
The guard at the door has no idea what's coming. His stomach must have just dropped to the floor.
Totally. His radio crackles. He looks out at the scruffy man on the bench. Then he sees the hotel manager literally power walking towards the door, his face a mask of pure panic. The manager bursts outside. Sir, Mr. Finch, my deepest apologies. There has been a terrible, terrible mistake.
Wow. The man he thought was worthless was actually the most valuable person in the entire building.
Arthur just looks up and says to the guard, It's all right. Your brain was just doing its job. He walks past them and back into the ballroom. A frantic whisper is spreading. Maria intercepts him, tears in her eyes, and stammers, You're the one? All these years?
Imagine being in that room. You could hear a pin drop.
Arthur just gives a small smile and walks to the stage. The room goes dead silent. He takes the microphone and says, My name is Arthur Finch. A long time ago, I co-founded Nexus Dynamics. I stood on stages like this one in suits much nicer than this coat, talking about changing the world.
Chills.
He goes on, we judge each other in a tenth of a second. We assess a person's worth based on the brand of their shoes. Tonight, most of you looked at me and saw one thing, a man who doesn't belong. You weren't wrong about the clothes, but you were wrong about the man. The real truth of who we are, our kindness, our generosity, our struggles, is invisible. It's a character built from 1,000 small choices that no one ever sees.
And he ends with a knockout punch.
He does. He says, your face is a lie, not because you want it to be, but because the person looking at it is a storyteller, and they are telling a story about you based on the cover without ever reading the book. The only way to find the truth is to have the courage to turn the page.
Wow, that is such a powerful story. And it's so true. We are all the security guard at the door in our own small ways every day, aren't we?
We are. So the question becomes, how do we stop? How do we learn to see the person, not the persona we project on them? And the first step is just acknowledging that the instinct exists.
Right. It starts with a simple pause. That snap judgment is built for speed, not accuracy. You have to consciously slow down and give the rational part of your brain time to catch up. When you feel that instant reaction, just ask yourself, what am I basing this on?
Yes, recognize you're looking at a cover, not the book. And once you've done that, you can actively challenge your own bias. This is how you fight the halo and horns effects. If you're instantly charmed by someone, make a conscious effort to look for their actual qualities, not just their attractive appearance.
And conversely, if you feel an immediate aversion to someone, like the guard with Arthur, you have to force yourself to look for contradictory evidence. This is the antidote to confirmation bias. Instead of looking for reasons to distrust them, deliberately search for positives. Look for the shared humanity.
Another great technique is to seek out what makes them an individual. Our brains love to categorize people. It's a lazy shortcut. To fight this, focus on what makes the person unique. Ask them a question. Learn their name. The more you learn about someone as an individual, the harder it is for your brain to rely on a stereotype.
Yes, and I think this is so important for you, our amazing English learners. People might make a snap judgment based on your accent or because you're searching for a word, but if you have the confidence to keep going, to share something unique about yourself, you help them see past their initial lazy judgment. You force them to see the individual.
That is such a good point. And finally, practice empathy by flipping the script. Remember a time you were judged unfairly, how it felt to be misunderstood, to be reduced to a single characteristic. Hold on to that feeling. It's a powerful reminder that behind every face, there is a complex, unseen story, just like yours.
You will never completely turn off that snap judgment mechanism, but by being aware of it, questioning it, and consciously choosing to look deeper, you can learn to see past the lie. You can be the person who opens the door, not the one who bars it shut.
And honestly, building this habit doesn't just make you a better person, it makes your own life so much richer. When you stop sorting people into boxes, your world expands. The world is full of Arthur Finches, hidden gems in plain sight.
So we have a little challenge for you this week. Are you ready? We're calling it the Second Glance Challenge. The next time you interact with a stranger, a barista, a clerk, and your brain serves you that instant judgment, consciously take a second glance.
Not a stare, just a moment of intentional observation. Find one specific humanizing detail you didn't notice at first. The way their eyes crinkle when they smile, a flicker of tiredness, a spark of joy, just one detail.
It's a small step, but it's how you start to retrain your brain to see individuals instead of categories, stories instead of surfaces. Let us know how it goes.
In the end, Arthur Finch didn't just write a check, he gave everyone in that room, and us, a powerful lesson in perception. He showed them the huge, dangerous gap between what we see and what is true.
We think we are reading other people, but we are mostly just reading our own internal catalog of biases, fears, and expectations. True character, true worth is invisible. It's written in the quiet choices made when no one is watching.
The next time you look at someone, remember Arthur. Remember that what you are seeing is just the cover, a cover that has been designed not by them, but by you. Have the courage and the curiosity to open the book.
What you find inside might just change your life.
We'd love to hear your story. Has there ever been a time when someone completely misjudged you, or a time you realized your own snap judgment of someone was completely wrong? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story could be the one that helps someone else learn to see more clearly.
And if this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into the hidden scripts that run our lives. The more we understand ourselves and each other, the closer we get to the truth.
Right. Take care of your English.
And take care of your heart. I'm Holmes.
And I'm Melody, and you've been listening to Speak English with Us. Bye.